Let's go next to, where do we want to go? There's so many people who want to be on. Let's go to Saigon Mike. Saigon Mike, you're next. Saigon Mike, you're unmuted, but I'm wondering if you have the wrong audio device selected. And last chance for Saigon Mike to fix your audio. All right. That's too bad. Saigon Mike is gone. Let's go next to Steve from Chicago. Steve, welcome.
Hey, David, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes. So I was wondering, I know we've been kind of talking about, you brought up Joe Rogan a little bit ago, and he said, when he brought up his likening for DeSantis, and you kind of brought up he maybe doesn't really know what he's talking about, but do you think the possibility maybe that he sees more in line, even though he is a progressive, he sees more in line with some of the stuff that DeSantis is doing and isn't really happy with some of the stuff that like Democratic presidents are doing, like with Biden?
No, that sounds weird to me. I mean, if Rogan is more progressive, he couldn't possibly like what DeSantis is doing if he knows what DeSantis is doing.
But but all I'm saying is that the way that he can still be progressive, but not like that thinks that the Democratic Party is going too far, and that DeSantis and people like DeSantis isn't as far right as they're actually saying, or as extreme.
Well, I mean, you're saying, is it possible that something Rogan hasn't said is what's in his head? And it's like, I guess so, but we have no reason to think that that's what Rogan thinks. It's sort of like mind reading, you know?
No, like I guess an example for me is that the way that the progressive movement has been going with trying to push like puberty blockers on children and the trans athletes, which is like, I know, a subject that Joe Rogan opposes the way that's going, and that someone maybe on the right that would be more open to his view of like how that should be played.
I'm not aware of the movement among progressives to push puberty blockers on kids. Can you tell me more about that?
Wasn't the health secretary literally out there saying that the kids should be able to transition and use puberty blockers if they feel like they're in the wrong body?
Oh, okay. Because first you said that there was a movement pushing puberty blockers on kids. It sounds like what you're saying is one Biden administration official said that for the tiny percentage of people in that situation and the subsection within that wants to pursue such drugs, that it should be possible. Is that what you actually meant?
I mean, Biden
the first thing you said was that progressives are pushing puberty blockers on kids, but then your example wasn't that, was it?
I mean, okay, pushing the idea of using puberty blockers on kids, if you want to be more straightforward about it.
Well, when you say that, it sounds like you're saying that there's a movement to just convince children to take puberty blockers, but there isn't any movement like that, is there?
It seems there's a movement. I would say so.
Okay, so who is going around saying, "Hey, what we want is we want more kids to take puberty blockers"? Who's saying that?
The Biden administration, for kids who want to take puberty blockers.
Oh, but so what you're saying is the Biden administration has a position that in certain situations, for the tiny percentage of kids who identify as being in the wrong body, for lack of a better term, and for whom medical professionals believe it would be appropriate to make that decision, it should be a decision they are allowed to make, right? Because that's very different than they are pushing puberty blockers on kids.
I would say anyone, like, I guess
Well, let me give you an example to make it really clear.
I guess let me clarify, I guess, from my spot before you give your example. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Just so you can get your comeback. So I guess from Joe Rogan's perspective is that a kid that age, let's just say 5, 6, younger than that, like they can't enter into contracts, they can't do other stuff because they don't have the mental capacity to actually understand
Yep.
if they're maybe would be in the wrong body or not in the wrong body,
Yep.
or anything like that. And I'm not talking about adults or anything. I'm talking about kids.
Got it.
That it would be, and the harmful effects that could have on puberty blockers with them and their mind not being able to fully understand what's going on.
Would you apply that same logic to children getting vaccines where the kids can't actually consent themselves? The parents are doing it for them and they don't understand the full impact of those. And once you do it, you can't undo the fact that you've gotten a vaccine. Would you apply the same standard to the vaccines? I'm curious.
Vaccines, it's very interesting. No, I guess I wouldn't, but I guess I would. I guess I'm going back to like, do kids actually understand? I mean, I think a kid can understand more of a vaccine if the parent talks about it to them.
So it sounds like you're saying it's actually not about whether the kids can or can't sign contracts or are of legal age. It's whether they can understand a concept based on what their parents tell them. That's the standard you're now laying out?
No, I'm not. I'm not saying there's a standard. I'm just saying that.
Well, I'm asking what's
saying,
your
like,
standard?
Forcing. Oh, my standard is
right.
I don't think I don't think kids understand exactly what they're doing with the puberty blockers and more of the long-term effects that could have on them versus like a vaccine, I guess, which is different. I mean,
okay.
I'm sure
but
that
like in a few weeks, my daughter will be due for vaccines. She can't understand them. And no matter how I explain it to her, she's not going to understand them. By your standard about understanding, I shouldn't be allowed to get her vaccinated, right?
I'm not saying I don't think she'd be allowed to get her vaccinated. I'm not.
Right.
What
I'm asking you is, you said the standard that makes vaccines different than puberty blockers is the kids better understand vaccines rather than their understanding of puberty blockers. I just explained my daughter doesn't understand vaccines at all. By your standard, I should not be able to get her vaccinated in a couple of weeks based on your standard.
I didn't say that was a standard of mine. I was saying,
no, I literally asked you what's your standard, and you said that's your standard. My standard is they can't understand it.
Not on vaccines. I guess I was saying my understanding would be able to explain vaccines versus puberty blockers and all the side effects moving forward, transitioning and everything like that. I mean,
okay.
But again, my basic question is, my basic going back to the Joe Rogan part was more under, and I guess, I don't know why, I guess my pushing is, I'm not saying they're just like going up and giving up kids puberty blockers, but more of the emphasis on transitioning younger kids when the long-term effects, they probably won't be able to understand what's actually going on with their body and everything.
Got it. So let's now drill down to what we are talking about. So you're not saying that they are, just follow me step by step. You're not saying anyone is forcing puberty blockers physically into children, right? You're not making the claim anybody's doing that.
No, if that came across that way, that's not the way.
No, I'm not saying it. Let me clarify. So you're not saying anyone is forcibly being given puberty blockers. Good. Second, is there any campaign to go out and say, hey, kids, consider puberty blockers? It's cool. Like, is there a PR campaign, or you're saying there isn't that either?
I wouldn't say there's a PR campaign to like say it's cool, but I think there's a campaign / strategy of movement of like putting more of a spotlight on them for younger kids, basically, in with doctors, schools, within the administration, everything.
So you're saying that there are schools where they do presentations and they go, hey, kids, if you're not feeling good about your body, how about puberty blockers? That's happening somewhere?
I wouldn't say that they would say puberty blockers in there, but I'd say within schools, they're more or less, I guess, going into like gender identity and everything, and sexuality and everything like that, which would bring the conversation moving towards that.
Do you have any evidence that in schools where they talk about the fact that trans people exist, they're pushing puberty blockers? Is there a single example of such a school?
I mean, wait, do like the example where they're mentioning puberty blockers in the teachers said the word puberty blockers?
Yeah, where they're saying not when issues of gender are taught in schools, where puberty blockers are being talked about by teachers and presented as something to pursue or something. You said, remember that at the beginning of the call, you said pushing. The word was pushing. I'm looking for someone pushing it.
I'm not saying, again, I like I said, I don't think that they're like the teachers themselves are saying are pushing puberty blocker, like they're going and saying puberty blockers. I'm saying that the thought process and the transition to the end result with transitioning puberty blockers is in you may not like pushing the whole idea. Again, if adult wants to make a decision, I'm not against anything adult wants to do. I'm saying kids specifically push an idea.
No, Steve, I get that, but you started the call by saying that something is being pushed, and we've gone piece by piece, and you're acknowledging you can't actually identify anyone pushing it.
I mean,
everyone I ask you, is this person pushing it? Is that person pushing it? You go, well, no.
So what
and now you're saying I'm not even saying it.
What is your definition of pushing it?
Promoting, encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, the Biden administration is encouraging kids.
Okay, no, Steve, now we're back to the beginning. That was your first claim, which already fell apart. All right, Steve, thank you for the call. I'm going to let you go. By the way, I'm not even taking a position for or against puberty blockers for kids. Like, I don't know enough about it to say, maybe it's not a good idea. Maybe I'm not taking a position. That caller had no idea what he was talking about. Okay.